understand that you can't force them not to be anxious.
Hey, it's Jeziel here, and welcome to another episode of Table Talk, where we give short answers to tall topics. And joining me today, we have the pleasure of having Graham Irvine from Kingsway Christian College. Graham, how are you going?
Doing very well, thank you, Jeziel. Yes.
Now, I know you were in here last week, but what are you touching on? What are you bringing to the table this week?
Yeah, so we opened the topic of anxiety, and it's a big issue right across the age groups. But we were talking specifically about learning to know a little bit about what is anxiety. Because if we don't understand it as a parent, then we don't actually equip ourselves with the tools to be able to help our children avoid it and control it.
Okay, so I know that you want to touch on cortex-driven anxiety.
Yeah.
To me, we might as well be speaking Spanish. So what is
Latin,
that?
actually.
Yeah, oh, right.
Yeah, Latin, not Spanish.
I was so
Latin.
close.
Yes. So essentially there are two pathways that all human beings get anxiety from. Okay. The cortex is the frontal part of the brain. That's the part that does the thinking, does the creating. Okay, it's the part in males that develops when they're about 25, which is why they're kids up until that date, right? And girls really have that matured about 18, 19. Okay, so it's that thinking process, right? The other part of the brain is called the amygdala that deals with anxiety. The amygdala is the warrior center of the brain. So it's the part of the brain that gets you ready for fight, flight, hide, or freeze.
Okay, right.
Okay, and we've all experienced it. It's that part of the brain when something catches out of the corner of your eye and you go, what is that? That's the amygdala automatically getting your body ready to go. So both of those pathways, the cortical or cortex pathway rather, and the amygdala, they bring anxiety to us. So we talked about that last time. And as parents, what we've got to do is learn to identify them because trying to control cortex anxiety with amygdala skills is like trying to fix your car by opening the fridge door.
It doesn't work.
It doesn't work, no.
Well, I've been doing it wrong for so many years. All right, so let's focus on the cortex side of anxiety then.
Yeah.
Can you give us a few examples so we know what to look out for?
Yeah. So cortex anxiety is about thinking anxiety, okay? Whereas amygdala anxiety, emotional.
Right, okay.
So that's probably the easiest way to distinguish them. So you'll know that me, anybody is experiencing cortex anxiety when they're constantly worrying about something, where they're ruminating over a problem and they just can't seem to let it go. Certain expressions in the way that we speak about an anxious situation gives us some hints.
Okay.
So if your child is going, oh, Dad, I never get this right, well, that's called catastrophizing, right? Does it mean they never get it right? No. Okay. But that's a sign that this is maybe anxiety about getting it right, but it's anxiety that sits in the prefrontal cortex. It's a thinking process, right? So they're not thinking right about it. Or I just know I'm going to get hurt if I do that. Or I know as soon as I walk into, so this one I dealt with a couple of weeks ago. Mr. Irvine, as soon as I walk into the classroom, everybody hates me. Right? Now that's thought-driven anxiety. I'm anxious about that, okay, and I feel terrible, all those feelings, but it isn't the feelings that are not the originator of the anxiety, it's wrong thinking.
Right, okay.
Okay, so that's how as a parent you look for those signs. So one of my grandsons is really good at catastrophizing. Okay? Oh, Poppy, this always. And I go, always? Yeah, always. Really? Always? Oh, okay. Righto, sometimes. And so that's the skill that we bring as a parent to helping our children to actually think better.
Right, okay. So we've just got to question the way they're thinking and get them to think about it. Is that
Absolutely. So the little expression to use is, we need to teach our children to become thinking detectives.
Okay.
Okay, so in that example I just gave you with my grandson, I was helping him to ask good detective questions.
Yeah, right.
Right? So let me go back to the one where everybody hates me. Okay? So my first question to that student was, so you know everybody in the class hates you? Absolutely. That was
the answer. Wow.
That was their answer. Yeah. And I said, so you've spoken to everybody in the classroom and everybody in your class has said to you, I hate you. Well, no, of course I haven't, Mr. Irvine. I said, oh, okay, well, how do you know? Well, I just know. Now, that's called mind reading. Now, in, my dad joke mode, I said to the student, I said, so, okay, great. Look, I'm just going to go and get a lotto ticket. If you could give me the numbers for next week's winning ticket, that'd
I
be
roll?
brilliant. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. But she started to get the fact that, okay, I don't actually know that. I'm assuming. Now, she may or may not be assuming correctly for some of the students, but there are things that are saying to her, you hate me. And so by asking questions, by being the detective, I'm helping her to go, oh, maybe I didn't get that wrong. And eventually in that conversation, we got to a place where she was willing to say, well, no, actually there are several students in there that are my friends.
Yeah, right.
I went, okay, fantastic. Now let's talk about, and so we go and discuss the other stuff.
Right.
But it's that initial, as a parent, seeing our child upset about something, anxious about something, we have to first and foremost decide, is this emotional anxiety or is this thinking anxiety? Because the skills to deal with both are quite different. Yeah.
Right. What sets this off for someone?
That's a really good question. And you know what? If we actually knew the answer, we could make a pill and stop it happening.
Yeah. Or avoid that scenario.
Yeah, look, I suspect, after dealing with kids for 40 plus years, that there are certain personality types that are much more susceptible to anxiety. They are by nature the worriers. They tend to see the glass half empty rather than half full.
Yep.
They see the problems, not the solutions. And we all have that hardwired into us to some extent.
Yeah.
Some people, that's their major way of operating. So I think that's an aspect of it. Certainly, the research is very clear that if as parents we create an anxious environment in our home, that actually physically affects the neurological wiring of the brain. Now, I've seen the experiments, the what are they called anyway, where they look at the brain function, and I've seen it.
Yeah,
right?
okay.
It is absolutely true. So when they compare a 15-year-old who's grown up in a quite dysfunctional home, lots of stress, lots of anxiety, the way that her brain operates is physically different to a 15-year-old who's grown up in a functioning home, not a non-conflict home, but a home that does conflict and worry well.
Yeah, okay.
So why does it happen? I think there are environmental factors and there are physiological factors. So both of those things come into play. The child may experience a traumatic event. And we all do, right? How that then plays out is quite different to each individual. But our role as parents is to identify, is it thought or emotion? And then how do we help them deal with it?
I'm just thinking, is there ever good anxiety? A level of okay, no, they actually should be concerned about that. And how do we draw the line between good and bad anxiety?
Great question. And yes, there is good anxiety. Now, one of the things we talked about last time was fear is a sense of anxiety or a sense of dread about something that is really happening. Anxiety is the same sense about something that may or may not be happening.
Right.
But it's okay to be anxious, right? You go into an exam, right? You're going to be not afraid, but you're going to be anxious. Am I going to do well? Am I not going to? That's okay. what we have to look for as parents is when that anxiety then drives the behaviours of our children.
Right.
So is anxiety at such a level that they don't want to go to school, that they won't go out the back door, that they won't talk to Aunt Mary? You know what? Here's a behaviour that's happening. Is anxiety a part of driving that behaviour? So yeah, like fear. Fear is absolutely appropriate.
Yes.
You know, but if we spend our lives being afraid of everything, well, that's not what fear's meant to do. And so, yeah, absolutely appropriate to think, oh, is this going to work out? Right? Oh, I feel a little bit anxious about this. Absolutely appropriate. But that shouldn't be the thing that controls us. And if it is, that's our job as parents to go, okay, how can we fix this? How can we give our children that robustness is a term that we use. You know, the strength to go, no, we can get through this.
Yeah, no, I love that. Just quickly wrapping this all up, what would be your one hot tip for parents dealing with a child who might have cortex-driven anxiety?
Listen to what they're saying. Understand that you can't force them not to be anxious. So this isn't a rebellious child. This is not a child that's breaking the boundaries because they just want to see if they're there. Okay, this isn't that, right? This is a child whose brain is working in a particular way because for some reason it's learned to work that way.
Right.
And so I've got to approach it from the perspective of that, not, okay, you're being misbehaving, so I'm going to discipline you. No. This child is thinking that way. So how can I help you think better?
Yeah, that is awesome. My guest today is Graham Irvine from Kingsway Christian College. Thank you so much for coming in.
Absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much for watching. And if you loved what was chatted about today, well, there's more episodes, not only of Graham, but other people as well. So make sure you hit like and subscribe and check out those videos. We'll see you next time.